Entertainment Soldier here, and I am back to talk about Sony's Monarch Legacy of Monsters and my thoughts on both these episodes. I think I've found my new favourite show. I am pretty shocked by this because I don't remember anybody asking for this show. It seemed like a very weird and stupid idea when you first heard about it, or at least to me. I mean, I don't remember people screaming for a series set in the Godzilla universe. So I walked into this thinking, oh, it's just going to be a money grab. Oh, it's just going to be one of those, derivative Sony, programs. Something they're just throwing out there just to get people to subscribe to their app. But both episodes were actually great. The stories are interesting, the characters are interesting, and to find out more about the universe of Godzilla and how the world's kind of dealing with this is really interesting. And you have got to give so much credit to the writers of this show, because in both episodes I am hooked. I am really hooked to the characters, to their story, to the overall world, and I'm not looking at my phone once. And in today's age, with the bullshit we get from TV shows these days, that's a massive achievement. I mean, I can't really point to any flaws in these episodes. I mean, I can kind of point to something in the second episode that felt a little bit too convenient. I mean, finding that big thing there, and it just happens to be that person. I can't go into spoilers, but that just kind of felt really convenient. But overall, and a little bit of CGI at the beginning of the first episode, which was obviously not the person who was supposed to be running. Anyway, other than that, I can't really point to anything wrong with these episodes. It was engaging, it was exciting at times, and I mean, the surprising story to find out about two people who happen to be related and all of that stuff. I mean, I didn't know I needed to have that sort of situation or that sort of storyline, but I'm happy that it's there. I mean, that's how interesting that story was. Didn't know I wanted it, now I kind of want to find out more about it. So yeah, I mean, these two episodes were just great to watch. I mean, we just don't get that these days. Great storytelling and great writing. That seems to be like a thing of the past, but both these episodes, it felt great. And you got to give credit to them. So, I'm very surprised. Again, didn't have any expectation for this show. None at all. And they have just blown it out of the water. It's I want to watch the next episode. I need to watch it. I'm excited for what's in store for the future of this, series. I mean, that's how much I'm hooked now. And I didn't know I was going to get hooked, but I am now. It's a great show. If you haven't watched it, give it a chance. It's really good to watch. It's really good. It's interesting. Again, it's kind of difficult to make monsters, and the movies themselves. I mean, the biggest problem with the Godzilla Kong movies has been the human characters. They have been kind of I don't need to see them. I just want to concentrate on Godzilla destroying things. That's why I go to a Godzilla movie. But with this show, I want to see more of the characters, not the monsters. And that, again, is a big achievement. And, yeah. I mean, if the people who are writing this could do the movies and help with the problems with the characters and write them 100 times better, those films would be fantastic. I'm not saying those movies are bad. They're not. It's just, again, the biggest weakness of those movies are the human characters. But anyway, overall, 2 episodes, fucking amazing. I give them both Well, the first episode is better than the second episode, so I give the first episode an 8, and I give the second episode a 7. And again, if you haven't watched this show, watch it. It's really interesting. It's absolutely captivating. Just watch it and find out. So let's go into spoilers now. If you do not want to hear spoilers, leave in 3, 2, 1. So the first scene is us back on Skull Island in the middle of the forest, where we see John Goodman running for his life from some sort of creature. Now, I do kind of have a little bit of a problem with this, being the fact John Goodman's character is obviously, well, it's not John Goodman running. The CGI in this scene it's not great. Like, I can tell it's not John running at most of the points where you're trying to show him like legging it. I mean, I'm sorry, I get it, the guy's old, but you got to be a bit more convincing with the CGI, because it's very telling it's not him. But anyway, so I should use his character name. Bill Randa is running through a forest trying to escape a creature. He gets through the forest. He's got his camera on him, but he accidentally drops it because, again, a creature's trying to kill him. He gets near a beach. He has a bag full of all of his materials and stuff that he's been gathering up for a long time. And as he thinks he's going to die by this creature, which turns out to be the spider creature, he throws it into a sea and thinks he's going to die. That's the only choice he had. But then some crab rock thing appears out of nowhere, and the crab rock and the massive spider have a fight with each other, killing each other and leaving Bill Randa alive. But now Bill's now thrown away his materials and stuff in the bag. He's now kind of realised he made a big mistake, because now he has no idea where that is and where it's going, and he's lost forever, and he's pretty much pissed off about that. Now, my problem with this scene, because I do have a problem with it, is there is nowhere in that movie, Skull Island, where Bill had enough time to do all of that stuff, because every time he was on screen, he had a shitload of Marines around him, and that same spider creature, I think the Marines killed it. So I don't know if Bill Randa. I don't know if Bill Randa just bumped into another spider, but there was just no way that he would have had enough time to have done that and not had any Marines around him at that point. So that's my problem with it. It doesn't really fit into the canon of the Skull Island movies. Now, I know the Skull Island movie is not great. I think it's okay, but it's not great. But it just doesn't fit in there. So that's my problem with it. Anyway, so we move forward in time to 2015, where we meet Kate, who is on a plane heading to Japan and kind of dealing with some family stuff, but also is a survivor of San Francisco when Godzilla attacked it and those other creatures attacked it. So she's still dealing with PTSD from that situation. We get a lot of flashbacks about it, how Godzilla, destroyed the Golden Gate Bridge. We find out in this episode that she was on that bridge, but she was a teacher with children. And there was this really cold but amazing scene where you see she tries to save most of the kids on the bus, but unfortunately there just wasn't enough time. And when Godzilla bashes finally through the Golden Gate Bridge, it breaks off some part of the bridge, it knocks into the bus that she's on, and now she's falling out, only gotten a couple of kids out, and the school bus just falls into the sea with, unfortunately, the kids. And I thought that was just really a cold-hearted scene, and it kind of shows why she is really still dealing with the whole PTSD, and how she does blame herself for those kids' death, and how it's really fucked her up. And I kind of like that scene. I'm not saying I like it because of what happened to the kids. I'm just saying you know, it's a really tough scene, and it kind of shows a lot of character development for her, which I did enjoy. And again, you don't really get cold scenes like that for women characters these days, unfortunately, because Hollywood writers have to make women seem like they can do fucking everything. And in this scene, you see that, yes, she's doing the best she can, but she is, at the end of the day, still fucking human. She isn't going to be able to save everybody on that bus. And that's what I like about it. You're not trying to make her a Mary Sue, you're trying to make her a real character. So, she gets off the plane. Oh, before she gets off the plane, they are dousing them, trying to make sure they're not got any infections on them and bringing it into Japan. This kind of makes her go into a bit of PTSD again. She gets off the plane. We see a bunch of signage around this airport about Godzilla and how this country is very prepared for an attack if it happens. She goes to check in and gives over a passport. Basically go through the whole, you know, thing of like, what are you doing in the country? She explains she's there on family business because of her dad's death. She's there to pretty much just deal with his affairs. So she goes through security. Person says sorry for your loss. She gets into a taxi, and you know, it's funny about Japan. All their taxi drivers have gloves, white gloves on. That is kind of funny. I'm just saying, I've been in London. Taxi drivers are definitely not that. But anyway, so she gets into a taxi, tells the driver where to go, and then this driver starts talking about how he thinks the San Francisco Godzilla attack is all fake, because we see a bunch of missile systems, how Japan is really prepared for a Godzilla attack. Like, they have military everywhere, they have rockets placed in positions, so yeah, they're not taking any chances. But this guy thinks it's all just a cover up to make money, and it's all for a military industrial complex stuff. So he's a real conspiracy theorist. And I kind of found that scene kind of funny, because, you know, that would happen. In reality, that would happen. Somebody would deny that this ever happened. And again, it's more realistic to do that. You know, there is some crazy person going to say there's not a Godzilla running about killing people. It's all just made up by the government. And she kind of just waves off because, yeah, she's seen Godzilla and she knows this guy's pretty much crazy. He then mentions a podcast he has, so it kind of makes a bit more sense why he wants to believe what he believes. But anyway, she gets dropped off, heads into the building. When she gets to the door, she kind of hesitates for a bit because her mum calls up trying to, you know, find out if she's okay and all that stuff, and when she ring up, you know, normal mum shit. But she tells her she's alright. She's dealing with the father stuff. She opens the door, and then when she gets into the room, she's met by a strange woman. And the woman starts to panic and starts to think, like, what are you doing in my house? And then Kate starts to panic because has she got into the wrong house? What's going on here? Then she slowly starts to realise, as soon as this bloke comes in, this house is her father's house, and it looks like her father might have had a bit too much fun in Japan, let's just say. And when the boy starts to question her, she then tries to, you know, leave the room. She's also kind of a bit pissed off as well at this point. It's like, what are you doing in the house? Am I in the wrong house? Kind of a whole thing. When she starts to realise, holy shit, this is her dad's, you know, second family, the penny drops, and then they all start kind of realising, holy shit, what the hell's going on here? And Kate just kind of doesn't really want to deal with this. She only expects to, like, get her father's things and, you know, deal with that. But now she's found out she has a brother and her father's been cheating on her mother. So she just leaves the keys and runs out of the room. Then we go to another scene where we go to Kurdistan, where we go back to 1959, where we see a young Bill Randar, his wife Mira, and a soldier called Shaw. And they're a team working for Monarch, looking for strange creatures and shit. And they gone here because they've picked up radiation at a high level, and as we all know from the Godzilla universe, where you find radiation is where you find big fucking monsters. So they're there to investigate. Once they get near the target, they leave their vehicle. We find out in the vehicle that there might have been something between Shaw and Mira, because it does look like there was something between them. But yeah, they're working as a team, and we also find out about the marriage and all that stuff, whatever. So they get out of the car, they head into the forest near the target they need to reach. Mira's got a Geiger counter to kind of make sure they get close enough to the target. And whilst they're going through the forest, they bump into some boy who points the weapon at them. And as Shaw is the protection, he pulls out his gun, prepared to shoot the kid to protect the scientists. But Mira, she can speak Russian. She calms the kid down, tells them they're not there to hurt anybody or do anything bad. They're just there to search for why is there so much radiation here. That's all they're here for. And the kid pretty much just tells them, you've been fed a fairy tale, there's nothing here, you don't need the masks, basically, because the kid ain't got a mask on and he seems to be fine. So is there radiation there? The Geiger counter seems to say there is, but it does look like most radiation is being sucked somewhere else. So the kid runs off, they head in, and they find an abandoned nuclear plant in Russia, and they then have to go in there and investigate what's happening and what is sucking in all the radiation. We then go to the next scene where we see Kate pretty much legging it to get out of the country now that she's found out what her father's done. But before she can leave, there is an alert that there may be a Godzilla attack happening. So everybody's rushing to the emergency centres. Kate's not really sure what to do because this is the first time she's ever had to deal with this. You know, an emergency, and a warning, whatever. So she's kind of struggling. She gets knocked over by somebody, but then her brother, or her new brother, comes in, grabs her, drags her with his mother to an emergency centre. They get in there, they stay in cover, but unfortunately Kate's already been in this sort of situation before and starts to panic, getting memories of what happened in San Francisco, and she starts to try to leave. She starts screaming, going crazy, but Kato, I think that's what his name is. So Kento's mother grabs her, tries to calm her down. We get the flashback of the bus and the children, and how she remembers that Monarch was also there, because she remembers Monarch soldiers. I would say this is also kind of a bit of a problem for me, because I didn't know Monarch had troops in that time. I know in the second film with Godzilla vs. Kong, Monarch had a shitload more funding, but they didn't have that much funding in the first Godzilla film. It kind of seemed like they were just a small group the government paid. It didn't seem that they were that organised. But okay, I can kind of deal with that anyway. So after a bit, the warning's kind of lifted. Everybody's okay. They can leave the shelters. So they all leave the shelters, and Kate talks to Kato, and tells him, "Listen, I don't really want to have anything to do with you. I kind of want to just go home and be with my mother." But he's like, "Listen, my mum wants to, make food for you, give you dinner. They want to discuss what's happening here." Kento kind of doesn't really want to get to know her, because he still kind of doesn't really believe that his father cheated on his mother. He still thinks that she's lying about his father, so he's got a lot of loyalty to his father, so he doesn't really want to believe what's happening. But she doesn't want to have anything to do with them. She just wants to leave. So before anything can happen here. She pretty much just leaves and just walks away and says, yeah, I'm not dealing with this. So she's going to head home. But Kento stops her and says to her, listen, you came all this way. You wanted to find out what Dad was up to. I know a place where we can both find out together. And he takes her to their father's office. They have a look around and everything. Kate kind of explains, like, you know, he cared more about his work than he ever did about his family or his families. Because it turns out he also knows what it's like to have a father who was more involved with the work. So it looks like he was the same with both families. Whilst looking around, Kate kind of notices the picture on the wall and pulls it down and notices a safe. She then goes through the whole, like, we need to open the safe. Picks out a bunch of dates, like her birthday, his birthday, her mum's birthday, his mum's birthday. Then she realises the code is kind of a mix of all four of them. And opens it, where they find the bag that Bill Randa had thrown into the sea. And it looks like somehow, after it was found by the fisherman in the first part of the episode, their father had acquired it and is now kind of looking through it to find more evidence about what is happening in the world, like with the monsters. Because it looks like in this series there's some sort of mysterious organisation that's also trying to find all this evidence about the creatures as well. So when they find all this stuff, Kento takes her to see one of his friends who apparently has a bunch of old equipment so they can read these old tapes that they found. Whilst we're talking with this person called May, it turns out May used to be in a relationship with Kento, and, you know, he ended the relationship with her. She doesn't really want having to do with him, but he needs her help. I also liked in this scene how, by the way, is we didn't get the whole bullshit of the bloke being dumped by the girl, because we've seen a lot of that nowadays. It seemed like he dumped her, and, you know, she's still hurt about it. So I liked that, because again, there's so much shit now with the whole reverse things, like always the man getting dumped, not the woman. I'm just asking for balance here, people. That's all I'm asking for. So it was surprising to see that scene, but a welcome one. So she agrees to help them, takes them back to her apartment, where she starts to decrypt the files from, or at least decrypt one file from one of the tapes. Turns out it has some security on it, but well, it's old security, so nowadays it's easy to crack. She cracks it, opens up the drive or the tape, but this alerts Monarch, because they have spies everywhere apparently, or at least they have a code in the internet that looks for any material of theirs that ends up on the internet. Turns out May was able to stop most of the material going online, but some of it she had to put on the internet so that she could unlock the drive. So Monarch got a bit of the files, not all of them. So they are alerted to this, and this is where we first meet Tim, who doesn't really want to send the alarm bells to the Monarch heads up. And it turns out he might be working on his own or for some mysterious organisation, because he decides to ring up some random person and say they should head to Japan and find these files. We then go back in time to 1959, where we see Shaw, Bill and Mira, who are in the nuclear facility. They do a bunch of explosions to kind of see what's happening underground. They find out there's something underneath that they should search for. They go into inside the facility, where they find a shitload of eggs from some mysterious creature. They're not really sure what to do at this point. Do they take pictures or do they go down there and investigate? But going down there to investigate is kind of dangerous. And, well, if you get trapped down there, who knows what's down there. So Shaw says they shouldn't go down there. Bill agrees with him, but Marine, who wants to, investigate, gets the rope, heads over the side, wants to go down there and check it. So Shaw reluctantly agrees to go down with her and lets Bill, slowly bring them down. When they get down there, they investigate the eggs, but unfortunately, they probably picked the worst time to check because the ground around them is shaking, it's starting to fall apart in there, and then the eggs start to hatch. And then they have to run to the rope where Bill has to try and pull both of them up. But unfortunately, Mira gets caught by these mysterious creatures and then the rope breaks. Shaw did try to grab her before she dropped, but he couldn't reach in time. And that's how the episode ends, with Marine dropping down into the unknown. And that's how episode 1 ends. Now on to episode 2. But by the way, I think episode 1 is great. It is the best of the two. I enjoyed the family stuff. Again, it was something I didn't know I wanted, but it was kind of interesting to see how that would kind of happen and how two people would try to deal with that, and I did really enjoy it. And again, we got to see Godzilla scenes, and that's just always going to be epic. I mean, again, the best part of those films is always going to be the Godzilla scenes. So, we start with episode 2. Oh, I completely forgot one scene before the ending, sorry. Kate and Kento are still arguing about their whole family situation. He still doesn't trust her. He still thinks there's something fake about her. And while she's speaking in Japanese to May, Kate reveals that she can also speak Japanese. And when he asks her, how do you know Japanese? She says it's how her and her father used to talk to each other. It was their second language to each other. And then we get the back story of what happened after the attack on San Francisco, and how his father went to San Francisco to make sure she was okay, went to the emergency camp to give her some tickets and some information about a car and an apartment where her and her mother will be safe. She kind of wants him to come with them, but he tells her that he needs to go somewhere to investigate something and he can't be with them right now. This kind of does piss her off, because why is he picking work over his family again? Why is he not caring for them? So, she's pretty angry, and understandably. And that's how the episode ends, with Kate shouting at her father saying, why are you leaving, basically. Anyway, on to episode 2. So episode 2 starts off with Shaw being brought in front of a general, and the general's pretty much giving him a dressing down for getting into a fight with some of his own people. And Shaw pretty much explains, well, I got into a fight with those idiots because they were harassing a maid, and I didn't like what they were doing. I don't like bullies. And then the general says, well, because of that, we're going to send you on some shitty mission as punishment, but this mission isn't as shitty as you'd think. We've already lost some person on it. You're going to be sent on a mission to protect some scientists who's going to be sent on some investigation mission, and the government wants to make sure that she's secure. So he reluctantly has to agree. And then the next scene is us seeing Shaw and Mira meet each other for the first time. We get the kind of whole classic, like, oh, I didn't know it was you. I thought you'd be a man. She does feel a bit insulted by this, but she kind of plays with it and says, yeah, I know what you were thinking. Let's just move past this and get on with the mission. Whilst they're driving in some old American Army Jeep, he's kind of saying, you shouldn't go as this fast. You kind of should slow down. She's going like, aren't you a soldier? Shouldn't you be, dealing with the risk and all this? Don't you trust me? And I thought it was kind of an interesting scene between them. It does show that they do have like some sort of chemistry with each other, and it is kind of, more proving that there must have been at some point a relationship with each other. I mean, again, you did have Bill Randa at the beginning of the series talking about how he hurt Shaw in some way, and I think it might have been the fact that Bill finds out Shaw did have feelings for Mira. So yeah, you kind of just seeing them laying out that storyline, which is interesting. So they get to the site where she's going to start doing the investigating. He still kind of isn't really that convinced about this mission. He thinks it's still a waste of time. She kind of still has to remind him that, listen, I'm here doing something real, important. Could you get on board? And he's just like, listen, if it was that important, why are they sending you? And then we kind of get this great scene where he just kind of just opens and he's not bullshitting. It's like, you're Japanese. If they thought this was a real concern, they would send real scientists. Now she does kind of get a little bit offended by this, but you kind of have to, like how he's just being honest. Like, this is 1959. Like, it's not a very progressive time, is it? I mean, if it was that important, wouldn't they just send a white guy? Let's be honest here. Not an Asian woman. And I like how she says, yes, that might not be what you think, but I'm still a scientist, and you should treat me with respect. And I like that from her as well. I don't want just to see her just accept that. I wanted to challenge it. And she did, which I did like. But whilst they're doing this, some random person just bumps into them. And this is where I kind of think this is the weakest part of this episode for me. It's just the coincidences. It's just the random stuff. And you're telling me that Bill just happened upon them at one point? I've got to say that's kind of a very weak reason for them to meet. They couldn't have been assigned at the same point. Again, I think I would have liked something a bit more realistic. Not just they just bumped into each other one day. But as Shaw is supposed to be her bodyguard, basically, he comes up behind Bill with a pistol and says, who the fuck are you and what are you doing here? Bill tells him, listen, I'm just here on a mission myself. I'm ex-Navy. I'm not a threat. I'm American. I'm here investigating mysterious creatures and finding out stories from the locals. Now, Shaw doesn't really trust him because, again, random person turned up out of nowhere, and Dr. Mira, she doesn't see as a threat here. She wants to get to know this person. He might have information that's interesting to her and her investigation, and she kind of challenges Shaw and says, listen, I think he's okay. I'm in charge here. And Shaw's like, listen, I'm here for a job. I'm here to protect you. I have no idea who this guy is. He could be a killer. He could be insane. The safest thing to do is to get him the fuck out of here. You can go on your work and I can do my shit. But she pretty much says, no, I'm in charge. You're dismissed. Now fuck off, basically. And unfortunately, I don't know why Shaw does this, but he listens and fucks off. Again, Shaw, you've just met some random tosser in the fucking jungle and you're just walking away. I mean, for fuck's sake. Again, it's kind of very stupid. Why would you do that? Again, she can't dismiss you. I mean, she technically can, but dude, have a bit of fucking, realistic. I mean, for God's sake, you're just abandoned there with some random bloke. What the fuck are you doing? So, yeah, he grabs a jeep and says he'll send somebody back to collect them later, or collect her later. And he walks away, he drives away, and then Bill and Mira start to talk about all the stuff that's been happening, how the locals have been talking about a dragon that's been flying about. And then, whilst they're walking through the jungle, he shows a map of a pattern of the dragon's flight route, and then she remembers that she's been detecting all of these as a map about the radiation that she's been detecting, and it turns out both align with each other. So the stories from the locals about a flying dragon match the radiation that she has been detecting. So whilst they're walking through the jungle, we get probably the stupidest fucking scene of this episode. Listen, the episode is still good. The episode was still interesting. But really, they find a Navy warship just there. And it's not just any Navy warship. It turns out to be the one Bill served on. Remember that story in Skull Island where Bill talked about him surviving an attack by Godzilla because they attacked something random? Well, that's the ship. Come on. That is way too convenient. That's the ship. It's just there. Come on, man. That could have just been a random ship. So we then go back to 2015 where we see Kate's trying to leave trying to leave Japan, but then bumps into Tim, the mysterious guy from the first episode. And now Tim is trying to kind of slyly, talk to her, say, hey, I'm just an American. I heard your accent. It's good to bump into another American when you're in like a very foreign country. And maybe we can talk to each other for a little bit. And Kate's just kind of like freaked out, and it is a bit creepy because he is very shit at talking to women, it turns out. But he then tries to kind of convince her to go with him, but again fails completely. And then pretty much just opens up to her like, listen, I'm from Monarch. I know you have our files. They belong to us. And now I want you to take me to those files so I can have them. Whilst they're then... So he grabs her, walks her out of the airport or station. I'm not really sure which one it was at that point. And then Kate says she wants to make a phone call. He lets her, but Kate grabs her phone and whacks him in the head with it and legs it. But he has backup, and the backup grabs her, throws her in a car, and they drive off. And he puts a mask on her to make sure she can't tell where they're going. But this starts up her PTSD. And whilst they're driving, she panics, kicks the steering wheel or the driver, and they end up crashing. Kate escapes, and Tim just kind of has to let it happen because she gets away too fast for him to catch up, and there are too many people around. So Kate heads to the police, tells them about what happened to her, and you kind of see this police officer doesn't really either give a shit or think she's lying, accuses her of being drunk at one point, and Kate doesn't really stand for that, which you can understand. And he says, okay, I'll ring up the American embassy, or at least I'll find the address for you. Kate kind of realises that's probably a bad idea, as he was an American, and this could be who knows what involved with the Americans as well. So she runs out of the police station, and we go back to Kento, who's going to work, but decides not to go to work. He heads to his father's office, where he just pretty much destroys everything he sees because of his anger towards his father and how he believes his father cheated on his... Well, he knows his father cheated on his mother, and so he wants to take out on all his father's stuff. But Kento, after he's had his little moment, sees the drawers at the back of his father's office, realises that he has the keys that Kate left at the apartment, tries a bunch of them, finds the one that works, and then finds a Monarch file, looks into it and finds an old tape, heads to May's place to ask her to unlock it or to find out what's on it. May is kind of like still pissed off about the relationships, like, I helped you yesterday, don't want to help you today, I'm trying to move on. He's like, did I do something wrong? I thought we were cool. It turns out we're not, but there you go. Back with it turns out also May's also still working on the files that Kate gave her from their father's safe. She's still downloading them. She's still trying to find out what they're about. And, we then go back with Kento, who heads back to his place where his mum is looking at old photos, where Kento's pretty much like, why aren't you more angry? Why don't you want to be like, get back at at the person who wronged you? And she just brings up, listen, you're angry, are you any happier? And he says, well, no. But then she starts ripping up pictures, and it's pretty much just somehow to calm him down and say, listen, we can both be angry, we can both be sad, we can both move on and realise stuff happened, but there's no point in being depressed. And I kind of like the scene between them. It was a good mother-son moment. I really did enjoy that. Then there's a knock at the door, where it turns out to be Ted and the mysterious woman who's with him. And they pretty much demand to come in, or at least they walk in and tell Kento, yeah, we know you've got our files, give them back or you're pretty much in trouble. And Kento doesn't really want to cooperate with them, but then the mother starts telling him, you need to cooperate, if you've stolen something from them, you need to give it back. But it turns out this was just a ploy to give Kento time to escape, where the mother was going to kind of delay them as much as she could. Oh, I forgot the earlier scene. Kate tries to head back to May to kind of get her help because she lost her money and her passport. When she gets there, Ted and the mysterious woman is with him in May's room, and May grabs Kate and they run away from the area so Ted doesn't find them. Anyway, back with Kento. So Kento gets a message from May telling him to meet them up at the restaurant. He does, and they then decide, well, May has a bug out bag with passports and money so she can get out of the country and somewhere safe because of the two people trying to grab them. Kate's kind of surprised by this, but I kind of think it's pretty much an interesting thing to have. Again, I think a lot of people should consider having a bug out bag. Might be interesting to see. But anyway, so Kento, well, Kate wants to just give them the stuff so she can go back to having a normal life. Kento doesn't want to do that because, or at least May and Kento don't want to do that because they kind of realise it wouldn't just end there. So Kento's mum gave him a picture of Shaw, and it turns out Shaw is in a retirement home in Japan, and they head off there to see him and speak to him, and it turns out to be, and when they get there, it turns out to be Kurt Russell playing older Shaw. Now, I know he was in the show, I know, but it's still surprising to see Kurt Russell in a fucking TV show about Godzilla. It's still surprising to see him. But yeah, he's there with one of those Japanese trees, cutting it down in the whole usual way, where he kind of realizes who these people are, which is Ted Randa's grandchildren. And when he sees them, he's happy to see them, but he kind of has to tell them, yeah, we need to go outside if you want to talk, because it turns out this is not a retirement home, it's a Monarch prison. And I kind of think it's kind of going a bit too far. When the hell did Monarch have prisons? When the hell did they get funding for prisons? I mean, wow. So this is kind of a bit of a flaw in the universe as well for me. So Kento explains the situation to him, so does Kate. And Shaw pretty much says, like, listen, Monarch is not to be trusted. Nobody's to be trusted. If you want to sort this out, I need to get out of here, and we need to go somewhere safe and actually start discussing a decent plan on how to get the fuck out of this position. And he reveals that this is a prison. He's got a tag on him, so he cuts the tag off and says, listen, you've got 60 seconds, make a plan and make it now. And that's how the episode ends for them. The final scene is basically Bill and Mira walking through the ship, finding out this was Bill's old ship. Very, very convenient. And whilst they're walking back to get out the ship, they find a horrifying sight of bodies decaying with some goo on them. And then the ship is attacked by the dragon creature. Bill gets pinned, and Shaw then appears out of nowhere because he saw some radiation in the sky, and he drove back to kind of help them. He grabs a pole, pulls this big metal thing off Bill. They get out, they run out of the ship where the dragon is like trying to pick at them. And then we get a great ending scene of the dragon landing on the ship and roaring. And that's how the episode ends. Again, I think it's a good episode. Not as strong as the first episode. But again, it kept me interested. It was, again, it's just a good show. And we don't get a lot of them these days. And it was a fucking amazing surprise. If you haven't watched this show, give it a chance. Really give it a chance. And I can't wait for next week's episode. Again, it's an 8 and a 7 for me. And yeah, again, I can't wait for the next episode. I really can't. Absolutely enjoyed this. And that's the end of my review. If you like this review, give it a like. If you dislike this review, give it a dislike. And if you like my content, do think about subscribing. And if you have a comment, leave it below and I'll try to get back to it. Entertainment Soldier, bye.